The reality is we exist in a world where we have so much information at our tips. We can find it on YouTube, we can find it on Instagram, we can find it on TikTok, and I'm sure there's going to be even more platforms in the future, let alone everything that we can access on Google. And on the one hand, this can be really helpful and beneficial. On the other hand, this often leads to information overload. And also, how are we supposed to know which sources are credible and which are not? And this is especially important when we are wanting to heal our relationship with food in our body, because think about how many wellness influencers are out there that have either influenced you or influenced other people, but what they're saying is actually pretty disordered and isn't rooted in any kind of science. So that leads to a much greater question, which is, how do you disseminate information when you see it online? How do you decide what information is valid that you want to follow and listen to, and what information you'd rather just toss into the trash bin? I think it's a really difficult question, and when we're wanting to heal our relationship with food in our body, it can get really overwhelming. How do you sift through all the wellness information online and choose what you want? So that's exactly what I'm going to be getting into today. How do you do that for yourself? How, when someone is a wellness influencer, how do you decide, yes, I like what they're saying, I'd like to continue listening, or no, actually, this is in alignment with what I am doing and wanting from healing. So much of my own disordered eating was fueled exactly by this. I believed if I read something online, read it on Google, saw it on a social media platform, and someone even referenced research, then I just believed them and I took it for a fact and I started implementing it for myself. And then before I knew it, things got more and more rigid. And honestly, I was more and more afraid of every single thing that I put into my body. And so I want you to have a different kind of experience. And I also want you to know that if you're in this place, if you're feeling overwhelmed by what you're eating and all the information that's out there, if you're feeling confused about what you should and shouldn't be eating, if you're just feeling anxious overall because everything on the internet and on social media is telling you that you should be cutting out food groups and cutting out foods and avoiding certain ingredients, please know that you're not alone. I hope that this video, and my intention of this video, is to help you and teach you to cut through a lot of that so that you can be a wise consumer of the information that you consume on social media, and hopefully prevent some of the direction that I ended up going in, which is down a very disordered path. And before we dive into that, my name is Catherine Metzeler. I'm a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, here to help you create peace with food and your body so that all of this takes up less headspace and you can live your life with more joy, abundance, presence, and peace. You definitely want to take a listen to this. If you are currently working on healing your relationship with food, you likely have a long history of different diets you've tried and programs you've tried, and now you're at the point where you're like, who can I trust? How do I know which person can I believe when they say things online, or which people should I be cautious of? So I want to get right into it because I have 4 things for you today that you can go through when you're considering whether or not you should trust someone, whether or not you should follow them. And this list is not exhaustive. I can always make another video for you, but this is a really good place to start. So I want to jump right in. The first thing that I want you to consider is that anecdotal information or experience does not equal something that can be applied to many people. So what does that actually mean? What it means is that there are a ton of wellness influencers out there, wellness in big quotation marks, out there saying things like, this worked for me, therefore it will work for you. And that is just not the way that we do things when we're operating, in this case, as a clinician from an evidence-based perspective. We need enough information from enough people if we're going to implement some kind of protocol or intervention, because just because a few people experience, say, benefits from something doesn't mean that it's applicable for everyone. So be extra cautious if the person that you're following or the person that you're reading a blog from says things like, I did this and now I'm teaching it to other people. It literally means nothing, and you just want a flag to go up, because it's, to me, in my personal opinion, pretty suspicious when someone is saying, because I did it, then you should do it. without considering the really, really harmful implications in that, and without considering we actually have no evidence to support that just because it worked for one person or a few people that it could be applied to the population at large. The second thing is get to know the signs and symptoms of disordered eating. And why do I say that? Because I talk quite a bit about diet culture, but within diet culture, there's something called wellness culture. And wellness culture is the same crap as diet culture. It's just disguised as being healthy and good and clean and good for your well-being. And so it's really hard often for us to recognize that something is pretty disordered and is actually part of diet culture when someone is presenting it as being really good for you and your skin will be clean and you'll never have any problems with pooping ever again and all the things that people offer. So the reason why I say get really familiar with the signs and symptoms of disordered eating is because this will allow you then, when you're seeing someone on social media or reading a blog article or whatever else it is, watching a video on YouTube, if someone's talking all about their experience, you will know, no, this is disordered eating. It's just packaged up in a wellness package tied with a bow, and it looks pretty, but it actually is quite disordered. The third thing to consider is be extra wary and aware of people that are promoting absolutes. And what I mean by this is a lot of times I see at least wellness influencers and people on the internet saying things like, cut out dairy and then you will experience X. Cut out dairy and you'll get rid of your acne. Cut out dairy and it'll improve your digestion. Cut out gluten and you will achieve all the things you want to achieve in the world. There's a lot of blanket statements out there, and the reality is for people that are practicing in this area and doing this work, there is so much nuance to one, healing our relationship with food, and then just generally to our well-being, to being a well person. It's very, very complex and often complicated, or it has lots of parts to it. And oftentimes what I see when people are making absolute statements, they don't always have the research to back it up. They are, again, pulling from anecdotal experience. They are engaging in disordered behaviors and promoting it as wellness. So that's something else for you to pay attention to. Now, there's always going to be nuance in everything that I offer you. Does this mean that someone isn't offering valid information? They could be. I don't know who it is you're following and what you're looking at, but this is just something to be cautious of. If someone is offering absolute statements around food, be cautious, be aware. It might not be the best source for the information that you're looking for, which leads me to my next point. If you're wondering how to sort through all of the wellness information on social media while you're healing your relationship with food, I want you to give yourself some time and consider your why. And what I mean by your why is asking yourself, why am I following these people? Why am I interested in this information? What am I trying to seek out? And once you get the answer to that, is it that you are receiving what you're looking for? So for example, is your why because you want to be well as you age? You want to have the energy to be able to play with your grandkids or your kids as you age? And then the information that you're seeing is talking about cutting out foods, about going on diets, about losing weight, etc. So is it actually providing you information on how to live your life well as you age, or is it causing you lots more anxiety and contributing to disordered eating in the here and now? So take some time to consider your why. Why are you following the people that you're following? And seriously consider either pausing notifications, unfollowing, and not opening someone's blog for a little bit, and just see what happens. You don't need to consume information in that way. And even before you do that, if it is something that you choose to do, really consider your why. Why am I doing this? What are the things that are contributing to me following these people? And then once you have that, ask yourself, am I actually getting that? Or am I left even more confused, more anxious, more stressed out? And actually it's not super helpful. And with that information, you can make a decision from there. Do you want to follow them? Maybe you unfollow them. Maybe you start seeking out other sources of information about how to be a well person. I had to offer just one more because this is something I'm so passionate about, which is I want to encourage you to find people that you trust. Now, this one has a lot of nuance to it as well, because I realize that I, and maybe you, have followed people in the past who you felt like you had a trusting relationship with, only to find out, sometimes years later, that they actually weren't credentialed. The research they were using was kind of shoddy, if they were using it at all, and they were profiting off of people's fears, insecurities, illnesses. And so when I say follow somebody that you trust, I also realize that there's a lot of complexity to that word. And here's what I want to offer so that it can maybe guide you in terms of who you like, follow, trust with wellness information. The first thing is to consider their credentials. Now, credentials aren't the end all be all, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of dietitians, doctors, nurses causing lots and lots and lots of harm. And what I would encourage you to do is seek out dietitians, mental health therapists, doctors who are either eating disorder informed and or specialize in eating disorders, especially if you're working on healing your relationship with food. I, for example, as a clinician, work with people all along the spectrum: diagnosed eating disorders, disordered eating, chronically dieting, people that have a difficult relationship with their body, that nobody needs this stamp of approval to work with me. As long as there's chaos in the brain, I believe you deserve help. So seek out people first that have some credentials that might be in alignment with what you're looking for and searching for. Once you start following these people, you are more than welcome to ask for what they use to support the things that they're recommending. Now, you might say this on social media and you might not get a response, but if you're considering working with someone, if you're considering working with a dietitian or a mental health therapist or a doctor, you can ask about the things that they use to support their work. What's the evidence that they use? What's the research that they use? How do they gather the information that they have in order to guide their patients or clients in terms of healing their relationship with food and or offering any kind of advice when it comes to food and nutrition. This is why, for example, I on Patreon offer a monthly coffee chat live where folks can come in for as little as $5 a month and ask questions to me. And this is a safer space, I believe, for people to get their questions answered. But this is a way that you can begin if you trust someone. In this case, it may or may not be me, but if you trust someone where you could show up and ask questions and get them answered. And there are lots of wonderful clinicians out there that are doing really, really, really powerful work on helping people to heal their relationship with food in their body. And even if they are only eating disorder informed, you want someone that is going to be aware of what disordered eating is, and they're not going to be recommending wellness tips that are rooted in disordered eating. I realize that that was 5 things, so I hope that it was helpful for you. It is a wild world to exist on social media and Google, and again, have this inundation of information that we get. How do we disseminate it? How do we put our dissemination goggles on or glasses on to be able to say, okay, this person I trust, I believe what they're saying, versus, ooh, actually this person is really just promoting a lot of disordered eating, and because they have thin privilege and exist in a thin body and are saying things that are culturally accepted, oh, well, then that must just mean it's wellness, when in fact it's not, it's just disordered eating. I really want you to be able to get to this point, and I do believe that you will. I promise you will. And I also would like you to be able to protect yourself from people that most certainly prey on people's vulnerabilities and just assume that because something worked for them, that it can be applied to anybody else. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I always appreciate you giving it a like below. If you want more from me, check out the resources I have, and additionally, consider joining my Patreon for as little as $5 a month, where I offer exclusive content as well as monthly live Q&As while I answer all of your questions. I'll see you back here soon.